Welcome to Retrospective Cinema, a podcast wherein we'll endeavor week after week to see the full filmographies of chosen directors. We'll interpret, critique, and discuss. I'm your co-host, Ryan Saylor.
And I am your other co-host, Annie Morell. This week, we are finishing up Céline Sciamma's filmography for now with Petite, Maman. Here's a clip.
Je crois que ce n'est pas ta faute. Tu crois? Parfois, je me dis ça. Tu n'as pas inventé ma tristesse.
That was, once again, from Petite Maman, or Little Mother, if you know nothing about French, I guess. Yeah, before we dive into it, we are a full spoiler podcast. So if you've never seen this film, I mean, it's only 72 minutes long. Go watch it. But if you're okay with that, if you're okay with hearing spoilers, if you already saw it and you're looking for our insights, stick around. Get cozy. I'm excited to talk about this.
Yeah. Also up ahead, we will do our awards as we are approaching the end of this filmography. And though next week we'll be taking a brief divergence from our normal routine to do our respective top 10 films of the year, we will announce at the end of this episode our next director. So that's all very exciting and ahead on this episode.
Yeah, stick around. All the cool kids stick around till the end.
Before we get too far into this, we actually did get some feedback this week, and it was very good. Like, super thoughtful, well written, and I want to consider it here. I did respond on the actual thread, but it's worth bringing up here. So, user Afifa Senef, I hopefully got that right, commented on Annie's Letterboxd review for Girlhood, saying, I randomly listened to the discussion on your podcast as I'm reading the reviews for this film. I'm sorry, but I think Ryan doesn't fully understand systemic barriers and their psychological impact. Despite the main character knowing that her decisions are bad, we can see this when she tries to stop her younger sister from doing the same, she still chooses shortcuts to escape poverty and loneliness because she has been psychologically wired to look for what feels faster and easier. And as you've repeated many times on your podcast, she's very young and has never had anyone take care of her. You're not, quote, cutting her some slack. I'd say you're acknowledging that the situation is far more complex than simply making good decisions. So, very fair. I responded, I won't read word for word what I said, but you can find it on Annie's review on Letterboxd. But essentially, I wrote back saying that I don't even necessarily disagree with her. I started that whole episode by acknowledging that there were several disconnects between me and that main character, and that there was a chance that would affect, my perception of the film, my perception of her choices. And that ultimately it wasn't even necessarily that I had a problem with her making those choices. I just felt like the film had trouble acknowledging what her decisions were and how they'd affect her. And also I did feel like the film at times took away her agency. It would develop her and then retract that development in order to keep her making similar decisions, was at least how I felt about the film. But yeah, I'm always down to get called out on how I interact with art about communities other than my own. And I'm always developing as a person. So hopefully I'm never coming off disrespectful. But yeah, I was glad to see that and talk about that both there, where you can see, a little bit more if you want to dive into it and hear it was worth acknowledging.
And I'm always happy to be the review that hosts that kind of discussion. I loved it. No, genuinely, I why we're here. We're here to discuss film, and it was nice to see that's something we talked about, that's something I wrote a little bit about, informed that discussion. So Thanks for commenting and for listening. We appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you've continued to join us, hopefully you
hear our
enjoy this week. We're talking about we're talking about Petite Maman, and I guess we'll dive into that now.
So you had seen this one as well. This was the other Sciamma film that you had seen prior to us delving into her filmography. And you had I was very nervous because I loved Portrait of a Lady on Fire. And I was like, okay, what are we gonna get up to next? It's a hard act to follow, as Girlhood was for Tomboy. And you kind of reassured me that, yeah, this is a good one. And boy, you were right. I I adored this.
Yay. Yeah. It has a lot going on despite being as small as it is. And it's small in lots of ways. Like the runtime is just one piece. The film follows literally small characters. At one point, our child protagonist pulls her dad into frame because he doesn't fit in the frame in his regular stance, and it's great. And just the pacing, the style, everything is small, but that is used to look at some really fascinating topics and to go through this story that could be massive sci-fi, but is presented again small. So, and we could dive into any part of it, but was there any specific element that stood out to you the most?
I mean, the thing that surprised me the most about this was I was not expecting a time travel film at all. Of course, it's not advertised that way, and in many ways, it barely is. It really is only a time travel movie in the most, I don't know, technical sense. That yes, she technically does time travel back to when her mother is a child. Our main character, Nellie, does. And yeah, so I think that as a mechanism, as the mechanism for the film stood out the most to me, and the way that it is, very grounded other than that. For technically being like
Well,
science fiction adjacent.
yeah, I feel like it's grounded even including that. Like there's no time machine, there's no like gain it all together or whatever. She just walks into the forest, and when she passes a certain point, it's 30 years ago. So the setup for this film, we get an opening in which a small child goes room to room at a medical care facility for old people and says her goodbyes as they pack up her grandma's belongings, which is just a horrible but clear and very sad and real visual thing. I am sad every time when the film starts that way.
And I loved that as a mechanism for all of this exposition that we need for this tale. Like, so few words are spoken, and yet you get just this complete picture, and it's sad. Yeah, it's not just exposition, it's character development and plot and all of it. Anyway, please continue.
Yeah, well, we're introduced to a number of things. We get to see how our character interacts with others, and we do get introduced, and at the time it could just be looked at as regular grief, but we get to see her mom's sadness. There's that shot as she stares out the window. We get the title card during this and kind of forgets that her daughter is there and probably needs cared for in this moment. And that's, going to come back pretty strong once we get to the main plot. So anyway, they go over to what was the grandma's house and is the mom's childhood home to clean it out. And the mom leaves, and our little girl Nellie goes exploring, and yeah, sure enough, it's 30 odd years ago, and she meets her mom at the same age she is now. And they get to interact. I mean, the rest of the movie ranges from very small, playful things. They put on like a little play together. They make pancakes to very large conversations about why they are the way they are and who's responsible for what. And what do you want to talk about first?
First of all, I think I want to talk about the fact that the young actresses who play Nellie and Marion are, in fact, twins, which I think it's a testament to both their performances, the direction of them, and even like costuming and styling of them. But I watched the entire film being like, wow, the casting director killed it. Like these kids look so similar. And that's so cool because it's like really mother funny. And daughter. And then I go to IMDb and it's like, oh, it's because they're identical twins. That's I liked that choice.
I think it's such a good choice. I think it's so funny because you're waiting for any adult to like note how close these two girls look. And the most we get is finally when Nellie's dad sees Marion's, Marion as a child. So Nellie's friend, who is her mother, I'm trying to word this as uncomplicated as I can. Anyway, and his face is hilarious because I'm sure he's seen his wife's childhood photos and he sees his daughter every day and he's looking at her new friend and just a little shocked.
Even if he hadn't seen his wife's childhood photos, the child looks like his daughter.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it's very funny seeing him react in that moment. I like that
I
moment a
liked
lot.
that too. Yeah. And I think, it's really smart, not only from a character standpoint of, they should look similar because they are mother and daughter. Yeah, it makes sense that the two of them, look so similar because like even in the case of me and my own mother, if you look at childhood through high school photos of the two of us, I mean, she looks exactly the same. I can show that photo to people. I can show it to my own self and think, no, that's me. Even though, it's in black and white from, the 60s and 70s. So that makes sense. But I think it's also a really smart way to cast these roles because there's already such a bond between these two kids because they are twin sisters. And I think it's a really effective way to just have that from the start, that kind of closeness that these two girls in this story pretty immediately have because they're related. Makes sense to cast two actors who are related to play two characters who are related in different ways, but still.
Sure. I think one of the biggest questions this film proposes, and one of my favorite topics therein, is it asks if the audience has ever considered what their parent was like as a kid. And, obviously everyone asks at some point, like, oh, what did you want to be when you grew up? Or, what were you like as a kid? But I think that's kind of the extent of it. I was sitting during this film this time and thinking that it's hard for me, nearly impossible for me to picture my parents as children, just ever. Like, to picture them doing childish things like at age 8, like I can't do it. I don't know if you can, but I literally, like, that is such a foreign concept to me that I just literally can't. And I think, part of adulthood is realizing your parents are human. When you're a child, they're very much figures that are infallible in a way. You just, everything that goes wrong, you can go to your parents and somehow it's going to be right. But as you become an adult, you might even have different opinions, ideas, morals, just anything from your parents. And there are times where they rely on you, and eventually it just, you shift into kind of an equal playing field. But having that equal playing field as a kid is just something that never really happens in reality. And I think it's so fascinating to see it here in this film and how the film imagines that might look. I wanted to bring up that whole idea and I guess wondered how you interacted with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, I guess I'll be talking a lot about my mom this episode. For me personally, I think it's a little easier to imagine my mother as a child because we are like very similar people in a lot of ways. So I guess I just imagine myself, which is kind of what this movie is doing in a lot of ways. Like I do think we see two young girls who get along very well because they are so similar. And I feel like, I don't know, we don't get a lot of Nellie's internal experience with this. She's very chill for a girl who just found out that this is, her mother as a child in front of her. She takes it all in stride, and I appreciate that about her. But and maybe that's just the nature of children, a lot more imaginative and open to things like that. But I feel like, if anything, there's almost surprise from Nellie that her mom is, a kid she would hang out with, because obviously, yeah, she knows her mom to be her caregiver. But at the same time, I feel like, being a young mom and clearly a mom who goes through a lot of mental health things, like, Nellie often mothers her own mother. And we see that immediately at the start of the film, where her mom is driving and Nellie is feeding her from the back seat, like feeding her some chips or something, and then giving her a drink of juice box. And yeah, so I think it's almost natural for her to see her mom as a peer, because I think in many ways they kind of switch off in the role of who is mothering whom, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that also is relevant to just, when a grandparent dies, it's usually, well, I mean, obviously there's all kinds of circumstances, but at this age, I think it's normally going to be easier on the kid because they've had less time with them. So, like, I think this kid's going to be shifting into a caring role for a little bit anyway. Like, I think that makes sense. But it's just in this relationship, it's a little more intense because her mom doesn't really know how to express herself.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even blame her mom for needing to go away for a few days. That's a very reasonable grief response, but like not explaining it and not giving an end date and all these things when your kid is so small is not ideal for sure.
No, exactly. I think it leaves her with a lot more grief than I almost disagree with you. I agree that Marion is likely feeling more grief for the death of her own mother versus like Nellie's grief over the death of a grandparent. But I think one thing we see in Nellie going back in time and seeing her mom, she also gets to see her grandmother. And I think she expresses pretty plainly throughout the film, like she does really miss her grandma. And it's just as much, her grandma has left permanently via death, and her mom has left her. And so she's left with her dad, who is very sad and, his own way because of all the things that are happening in his family. And so she kind of gets to use young Marion and the younger version of her grandmother as a way of kind of like filling those voids. Never, she'll never be able to see her grandmother again. She doesn't know at that point in the film whether her mom will even come back. And, I think that's really scary. So yeah, I don't know. I wanted to push back on the grandma thing just because I do think we have a lot of evidence. It's clear that she's spent so much time at this nursing home that her grandmother was living at, just by the sequence at the beginning that we talked about, where she's saying bye to every old lady and she's helping someone with the crossword, and she's got her activities, like with her individual activities with all these older women at this care facility. And she asks, I think it's a great, like, just massive amount of exposition in one short line of, can I have her stick? Because then you assume, it's a grandmother, it's a cane, and yeah, she wants to keep something of her grandma. But she is very young at the same time. But I think, like, in being very young, yeah, her grandma probably was a huge figure in her life. Small.
Yes, I was not arguing at all that her grandma's unimportant to her or something. I was just saying that inherently it's going to, weigh a little harder on the mom. That's all.
Okay.
Yes, it's very much in the text that she misses her grandma. I mean, one of the core plot threads, if there are those, is that she never got to say goodbye in the way that she wanted to, and then she does get to say goodbye to her grandma appropriately in the past.
That's right. Since we're kind of on the subject already, I thought it was interesting not only how much kind of Nellie is often mothering Marion, like adult Marion, what little we see of her, but we do see a little bit of that. I think her dad is a good dad and is being there in any way that he can be for her, while also moving through his own grief and confusion as to why his wife has disappeared. But I think we also get a bit of, and maybe it's just a commentary on young parents, how often, like, young parents and their relationship with their children can be a lot, like, friendlier, or have that duality of both they are a caretaker and you are caretaking for them. Because there's this one point where they're in the kitchen together, Nellie and her dad asks if he can smoke, which I just think is so funny. Asking your own child permission if you can smoke in front of them.
Yeah.
And it does.
It's playful, but
Oh,
yeah, it is a little genuine too.
Oh yeah, I think he's like, "Are you okay with this?" And she's like, "Well, it will kill you, but go on, have your cig." And he does. He smokes it out the window, which I liked that element of the nebulous space of parenthood, especially when you're young, like these parents are.
Yeah. One of the key lines or sets of lines in the film is on that very thing. Nellie says to young Marion, like, "Oh, well, you were really young when you had me." And she says, "Okay, what's that mean?" And Nellie says, I don't know, you just say it a lot."
Mm.
That's just so sad in like a lot of ways. I think it's a good reminder that kids pick up a lot of what we don't intend them to grab onto.
Yeah.
Because it's probably innocuous that her mother's saying, like, "Oh, just a dismissal," probably aimed at herself, but that's the thing that has stayed with her daughter. And then it's also sad in the way that, yeah, it's an acknowledgement that her mom clearly never really feels prepared. And I think we see that a lot with both parents and how they interact. And yes, the dad is doing his best, but doesn't seem to quite know how to care for anyone involved, and at least perfectly. So yeah, there lots of unpreparedness.
Yeah, and I think one of my favorite moments of the film was when Nellie and Marion, near the very end, I think maybe when they have their sleepover, Nellie asks, about like Marion's sadness, something like that, and Marion says to her, "You didn't invent my sadness."
Yeah, it's my favorite line in the film.
Oh, yeah, I think probably mine too. And so profound, like coming from a child, but that's also like it feels so believable to me because I do think children can be really insightful and profound in that kind of way.
Yes.
And I think it signals that, yeah, like sure, she is grieving her mother and what sounds like a really challenging relationship with a mother who is kind of constantly telling her like, "Oh, I'm about to die," because of her own disability. But yeah, that she isn't just sad, like she's not just going through grief of her mother dying, but that she is a sad or maybe like depressed person, and what that again like does for kids, as you were saying, like that kids do pick up on that and even blame themselves for those kinds of things that they can't understand.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely also in the text because we get Nellie saying like right after in response to "You didn't invent my sadness," she says something along the lines of like, "It seems like you don't want to be around that much," or something like that. And yeah, I mean I think it's a constant battle, when you have depression, to know that yeah, if you push people away long enough, like they're gonna think that it's on them, but often it's so hard, and I can't even imagine that as a parent.
Yeah, as a parent, as a partner for the dad,
Mhm.
hard to be around, hard to know how to relate to someone who's going through that or support them, because yeah, it's just kind of like watching someone drown from afar a lot of the time. So yeah, I do think it's beautifully and accurately depicted in this film, and I think in general why I'm so impressed with this one is with how short the runtime I think I even maybe told you this prior to recording, but with how short the runtime is, I was impressed with how much was fit in, and I actually felt at the end I was surprised that the runtime was that short, not because it felt long or like it felt like, oh man, this is a slog to get through, but because there's just so much richness and just the character building is so beautiful and detailed, and yeah, I'm astounded.
I think I will take this opportunity in case someone hasn't seen the film and is listening. A lot of what we've talked about has been a lot of my favorite elements of the film, the very serious stuff, the deep stuff. But it is worth mentioning, this film is actually very warm.
Yeah.
And very sweet. It's kind of, it kind of is a childlike presentation. The very serious things hit you when they're kind of not, they're not telegraphed. Things are unexpected. The film is very honest with its audience. It's a simple presentation of like, yeah, you can just kind of say these things and have good conversations about them, and then you can go back and make pancakes together, you know? So obviously there's less to discuss on scenes like that, but it is worth mentioning.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a big thing. What they first do together is they work on this fort that Marion is building, and at one point Nellie brings these branches that have, you know, orange fall leaves still on them, and she kind of decorates the fort and then shows Marion. I mean, there are all kinds of touching moments like that, or just, yeah, sweet kind of warm and fuzzy moments, so that it isn't just deep sadness. Though, you know, the launching point of the film is something that is very sad. And I think I even saw, I want to say it was on Letterboxd, and I should find who said this to give them credit, but I'm not going to. Sorry to this person. On Letterboxd, I saw, got him. You can find it. I don't know. It's not like I dug that deep. Someone was talking about how they noticed this turn in Céline Sciamma's career. The first 3 films that we've talked about also have, you know, moments of sweetness and fuzziness and happy little moments, but I think, you know, each one of them is ultimately just this really like rough tale of someone, you know, going through it for one reason or another. And, you know, you could describe this that way, but I think with this and with Portrait of a Lady on Fire, even if they have, you know, very heavy topics, I think there's so much more optimism in these last 2 films than the first 3, which I really love to see, and I think it is why these last 2 have been like real standout favorites for me, because of that like tinge of optimism that we didn't get as much in the first 3. I don't know if you agree, but there you go.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. This isn't something I had actively considered prior to this moment, but overall, you're probably right. Yeah, I mean, Water Lilies and Girlhood are both down in the dumps for a lot of it, and Tomboy ends pretty tragically. But Portrait of a Lady on Fire is built around a tragedy, so
yes, but they have a lot of like there's the whole, I think, not to relitigate Portrait of a Lady on Fire, but there's the whole portion of the film that is the 3 women that I think does just feel like it's that same kind of warm and cozy feeling, even if there are heavy topics dealt with within, which we see in this as well, you know, as you were saying.
Are you saying that we don't get that in Tomboy? Because I feel like we did.
I think we get, maybe I'm talking about like the ratio, because I think,
okay, just the way it feels, even.
Maybe not even a quantifiable thing, but just, you know, we like, I think about some of the most brutal moments of Tomboy, and I don't think, you know, I can find a moment that feels as brutal to me as like when, you know, the end of Tomboy, when the kids are outing Mikkel in the forest. Like that is a just incredibly brutal scene. And, you know, even though there's sad stuff in both Portrait of a Lady on Fire and this one, I don't think we quite get there. Like, I don't think we plumb the depths.
The world just seems a little less cruel.
Yeah. So I think maybe that's where I'm getting the feeling of optimism, is
okay,
the view that the world is maybe not that cruel. And not that I even, you know, obviously I think it is that cruel in reality, but just, you know, what you want to depict in a film, I think doesn't have to reflect reality necessarily.
For sure. I get what you're saying. I think if it was a cleaner progression, I'd be more inclined to agree, because I think Tomboy is closer to these 2 than Girlhood, so then it throws it off a little bit.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying, and I think there definitely is a clear distinction between her first 3 films and these 2, but I think it's more in like scope, if anything. Despite this one being very small, it feels like a larger work. Like her first 3 feel very, very indie, for lack of better phrasing, and then even though her Portrait and this are still small casts, not that many locations, all that, they feel more designed for larger audiences.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. And I do think, kind of as you were saying, there are two ways to break down her filmography. It is grouping this and Lady on Fire and Tomboy together, because and maybe Tomboy just straddles these two worlds that I'm talking about like a little more than Water Lilies and Girlhood, firmly in the like tragic plumbing the depths category that I'm talking about. But and then I think you can easily lump together Water Lilies, Girlhood, and Tomboy as like coming of age queer female stories. I want to ask a question of you. Did you notice, did you catch, since we're talking about the whole filmography right now, before we jump back into just Petite Maman, how much Céline Sciamma loves variations of the name Marion?
I did actually, and I was gonna research that. I did not get to. I'm wondering if you're going to take us to something. But yeah, this is the third film. We have oh geez, I might even mix them up. But I think we have Mariam in Girlhood. Well, so Marianne was in Portrait of a Lady on Fire, right?
Yes, Marianne.
And then this film is Marianne.
Marion, like,
I mean, I'm Americaning all of these names.
They're all basically the same name. Yeah, Mariam with two M's is Girlhood, Mariam. And then here in this film we have Marion, and then in Portrait of a Lady on Fire, the artist is Marion.
Fascinating.
Yeah, and I'm just, is that her self-insert character kind of every time? I don't know. That's I have zero facts. It's all conjecture. But
maybe she just likes the name.
Maybe she just likes the name, but she makes it a little different each time. I can't wait. Can't wait to see. She's gonna do an English film, and she can have a Mary Space Anne in that next time.
She's actually been working on a quasi JoJo's Bizarre Adventure this whole time, except instead of JoJo's, they're all Mariannes of different kinds and times.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, we foreshadowing.
You're about to spoil.
Anyone who knows it, but we're heading there.
Yeah.
In just a couple weeks, but
I can't wait.
I'll let a couple listeners race their minds right now. Anyway, so at the end of the film, she reconvenes with her mother, who's come back, and they say each other's first names and hug. Though it really doesn't matter, I wondered about the mechanics of this. Do you think that adult Marion is remembering this experience she had as a kid playing with her future daughter, or is that only something that Nellie experienced?
I don't think this is, I think this is an important question. I'm glad you asked this, because I was thinking, of course, as I was kind of talking about at the start with the time travel mechanic, I think so much of the technical bits of it don't actually matter, because the point is that these two people have this interaction. But I did think about this, and I do think it kind of gives us an answer, or at least the film supports what would be my answer, which is, I think that is acknowledging that did happen and that Marion remembers it. And I think, if you're Marion as a kid and you have this experience, assuming that it did actually happen for her as well, the same timeline, all of that, you remember that. You remember meeting your daughter, and you also remember that, she was about my age. She was 8 when this happened, and so I'm going to let it happen. If I'm given a signal from my daughter that it's happened, then I'll acknowledge it, So I like to think that she does remember it, and I think that it doesn't change. I think it doesn't change, how she acted as an adult, because that's just so often what happens, is we kind of remember or we don't remember certain like lessons that we maybe learned as a child in adulthood. What do you think?
I think you're right, and I think it's beautiful in a couple ways. I think so. You're saying that her mother has these conversations with her and then still hurts her as an adult, but I think that is very real. In microcosms. People often talk about how they repeat the mistakes of their parents. And obviously this is a very different situation than most people would ever go through, but I think it's pretty reasonable to be able to hear your daughter express this and then still make those mistakes, because that, I mean, that does happen even without time travel. So often kids will tell their parents like, oh, this thing that you're doing affects me or hurts me, and parents are unable to change their ways. So I think that's realistic, and that's human. It's not just parents.
I was gonna say it's just being human. Either way, if you think that she does remember that, and therefore she remembers when her mom is going to die, so you might think, oh, well, shouldn't she have been more prepared for this grief? I think you're never, even when you know that a loved one is going to pass away, it doesn't lessen the blow of grief. So I think it works on that level as well, of like, yeah, maybe she did know that this was going to happen. Of course she did, because she knew her mom was chronically ill, or had a disability. I can't remember exactly what her deal is, but like Marianne had a surgery to avoid her mother's disability.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, even with all that, even with knowing all that, that doesn't make any of the grief process any easier. So I think it works.
Yeah, I think the other thing, and it's not super prevalent, but, and I could be even just projecting what I would care about in this story onto the film, but I do think there's also a chance that that's kind of helping her get through life. She is depressive, and I think it is helpful to be like, okay, I'm gonna make it till at least, my daughter's 8. Like I know that I have to be there.
Yeah, I think that's lovely. It's sad, but it's also so beautiful.
Yeah, cool movie.
I wanted to touch on just 2 much smaller things that I loved about this. One, the soundscape. We haven't really talked about the sound of this film, but it's a very quiet movie in every sense of the word, but especially the sound design. Just like every little sound is picked up, skin on skin, fabric on fabric, fabric on skin. You hear people moving around with just such a crispness of just like people sounds. And there's not a soundtrack. There's not a score to this. Correct me if I'm wrong.
There's the music of the future at one point.
Yes, well, until we get to literally 8 minutes before the film ends. I did check the timestamp because, yeah, it was just this awesome needle drop to the first music of the film, which really makes you realize, like, oh yeah, I haven't heard any music up to now. Where, yeah, Nellie is listening to her CD player, iPod, I don't really remember, a device. And Marion says, is this the music of the future? And then it's a needle drop to the song she's listening to. And I loved that. I ate that up. Big fan.
Yeah, it's great.
The other thing I wanted to point out, and if you've seen this film, you'll know what I'm talking about. Go see it. Is the costuming is so beautiful and cute. Like, I want to wear the outfits that the children are wearing in this, every single one. And of course, in my brief research before we recorded, I found out that Céline Sciamma also did the costume design for this film. And it shows. It's also cohesive, and it really shows that she does have her hands kind of in all those different pots. Yeah, I just love that. I love her taste in sweaters and overalls.
Last thing from me that just kind of didn't come up anywhere else. There's a moment when Nellie and young Marianne are talking about, well, they're putting on this performance, and Marianne says like, oh, I want to be an actor. And you get to see for a moment that like Nellie's both processing like, oh, this is something I didn't know about my mom. This is something I've never seen from her. And I know that she's not going to end up in this. And also realizing, yeah, that thing we talked about earlier, that, her mom is just a human, like that she has these aspirations and dreams of growing up, and that, yeah, when she was younger, she wanted this thing that when it come to be. Anyway, so I think it's a really neat moment. I think the actress that plays Nellie really sells it on her face.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, Céline Sciamma, her direction of children is absolutely masterful. I don't think there's a director that does it better. And I think, we've seen it all now. So I can really say that. Seen it all, meaning all of her films. Not
Céline
every...
Sciamma's.
Yeah. Not
We've
every
seen
film
every
that stars a
film.
child.
That's all of them.
We're done. It's over, folks. Welcome to the end. No, but I think there's no one who does it better than her. I firmly believe that now. There's almost a really early Wes Anderson feel to some of it as well, especially some of the kid scenes. I think when Nellie first meets Marion, it's in the forest, and Marion, there's this like long shot of Marion dragging a branch, and she says, "Can you help me?" And it just had that kind of twee quality to it that I personally enjoy. And the way that they wave at each other too, I just wanted to shout that out because I think it's the cutest thing in the world. Just the full body like arm just pumping in the air wave. Adorable. Precious.
It sounds like we are at that point. Would you recommend the film?
Yeah, I don't even know what to say that hasn't been said. It's beautiful. It's heartwarming. It's sad. Great acting. Great costuming. It's great. Yeah, find this thing. It's 72 minutes long. What are you doing? Would you recommend the film?
Yeah, definitely. I think the 72 minutes is a huge part of it. Like it's definitely a slower film if you're not really experienced with that kind of thing. It can be hard to dive into a lot of stuff like this, but this is, as small as it gets. It's in the title. And I think the amount it covers and the way it covers it and just some of these massive topics that you don't see hit as often. We've talked about this film now nearly as long as the film's runtime. So
Yeah.
I think that in and of itself is a huge achievement. Definitely recommend this. And it's super like it's nice. Like there's no I don't think anyone would walk away from this being like, wow, disliked that,
Yeah, how can you I can get not it not being your style or whatever, but
Right.
how you could hate this film is just I can't envision it. It's impossible to me. It does. I think it fits in a similar category, and maybe it's just recency bias since I literally just rewatched this film, but it has the same kind of coziness but like melancholy at times as The Holdovers.
Oh,
for me.
yeah, I feel you.
And there's a certain amount of it's like a period piece halfway since she's going in the past, and for fall maybe a fall version of The Holdovers. Watch this in the fall.
Your quarterly hug.
The Holdovers in the winter. Your quarterly hug. I love that.
During summer, you can do Little Miss Sunshine.
Mm-hmm. Got one for spring?
No, I'll have to come back.
We'll have to find it here on this podcast.
There you go. If this is your first time joining us for the end of a director, once we've seen everything in their filmography, we sit down and give a couple words out. Each of us do our favorite performance, scene, and then film. And he's going to start us off with performance.
Yeah. So this run, similar to Paul Thomas Anderson, every one of these was hard for me. For performance, I think it is a two-way tie for second place for me. Noémie Merlant and Adèle Haenel, Portrait of a Lady on Fire. I think it's really difficult to separate those two performances too, because it is about their relationship and their chemistry together, unmatched. The individual performances, Noémie Merlant's performance as an artist in the late 18th century is great, and then I think Eloise is a character that easily could have been mishandled and played a lot more one note, and Adèle Haenel does just a gorgeous three-dimensional job with her. But I do think my number one spot is going to go to Zoe Heron in Tomboy.
Oh, very cool.
I mean, she carries that movie, and she's like, I don't know, like 10 years old. It's an incredibly impressive performance, and I was deeply impressed with her and just the direction of children in general. But what about you? I really don't know where you're gonna go.
I think we're talking about the same ones, but in a different order. My honorable mention was going to be Zoe Heron for Tomboy. Everything you said is exactly right, so I won't spend too much time. I did decide, I guess you can say the other gets an honorable mention, but I wanted to specifically pick I felt like that was the challenge between Noemi Merlant and Adele Haenel for Portrait of a Lady on Fire. And I'm even going back and forth right now, but but I think this second I'm gonna go with Adele Haenel just for that final shot. I think
Oh,
that if there wasn't that, I think I'd lean the other way. But that last 2 minutes or so of just her face being the perfect ending to that film, I ended up going that way. So there you go. It's on digital recorded. I don't know. I've locked it in.
yeah, it's locked in. You can't ever change your opinion now. Actually, that's how that works.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, I totally agree. I think it's deeply impressive to be able to do what she does in that one shot, all in one shot. Yeah. Moving on to scene. Why don't you go first?
Sure. Yeah, we'll start with my honorable mentions. From Petite Maman, there's them laying around, and it's what we talked about earlier this episode, where Nellie finally gets some understanding of her mother's sadness, and we get that great line, you did not invent my sadness. I think I'm gonna honorable mention, it almost is my scene, but I'm going to say the Rihanna music video from Girlhood. It's so good that it almost is my scene of the filmography, but I think, I just have obviously less emotional involvement in that, as it was my least favorite of the 5. But that single scene is just nearly perfect. But yeah, if I'm gonna pick just one scene, it's it's gotta be like I don't think I can narrow it down, but it's just the final moments of Portrait of a Lady on Fire. I think back to back you get the art gallery and then the concert hall. Do I have to pick one? Are you okay with me grabbing both?
I'll let you. I'll allow it.
It's our podcast, our rules. People can write to us.
I could make an argument for this. Yeah, I almost feel like even though they are literally two different scenes and not even the same year in the timeline of the film, I feel like they are paired together maybe by Marion saying, I saw her only 2 more times after that. I think you can pair them together because of that.
All right, what are your scenes? Talk about it.
Well,
I agonized enough.
It's going to sound like I won't skip ahead. My runner-up is the dinner scene in Tomboy with the whole family, but especially, the moment with Mikkel's sister, where she's talking about how much fun she had with her new friend Mikkel, and there are just so many layers to it. We get the best sibling relationship of all time on film in that scene.
Yeah, it's so good.
And yeah, I love it so much. It makes me smile. It's got that, as I was talking about earlier, it's got that optimism of like, oh yeah, the sister gets it. Like, we're gonna be okay. So I love it so much. And the reason why I'm allowing you to pick the 2 last scenes of Portrait of a Lady on Fire is because I also pick the 2 last scenes of Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
You said, I'm going to be so gracious as to allow such a poor decision.
If you simply cannot choose, because I can't choose, because I think, I mean, as we said in the episode, either if the film had ended with just, one of the scenes, either one, it would have been great. But it's that 1-2 punch of them that I think, it's amazing. It's amazing. And Adele Haenel in that final shot of the movie is just, I'll never get that out of my head. Yeah.
So good. All right, you get to do the honors. What's your best picture?
I'm gonna do, well, the true 2 runners up are Petite Maman and Tomboy, and I think this is very hard, and that does pretty much give away what my my best film.
It's Water Lilies. Yeah.
It's Water Lilies. You all knew it, but yeah, I mean I think all 3 of my top picks for this category are just insanely strong films. I think my official runner-up is going to be Petite Maman, if only because I haven't given it any accolades yet. And I think it's harder to get. I mean, I think, the two little girls are incredible in it, but it's harder to give individual accolades because I just think the film as a whole is so strong, and it's not, there's not the Rihanna music video standout scene like there is in Girlhood. It's just solid all the way, and it works just as one great shot. Not literally, but yeah. And so, if you've done the math, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, I think maybe has to be it doesn't have to be. It's definitely her most well-known still, most beloved probably. And there's a reason, because it's amazing. Especially in now having seen in order her entire career thus far as a director. I mean, it was such a risk. It's such a different type of beast in a lot of ways from her first 3 films. And yet in some respects, it's something that she knows she's very good at, and depicting a queer story. And yeah, she kills it in every way. I loved it, and I want to rewatch it. What about you? What are your picks? What's your pick,
So
singular?
at this point, I actually am throwing in a curveball. I do adore Portrait of a Lady on Fire, but I am picking Tomboy. I was absolutely blown away by that film.
Wow.
Sometimes, when you're watching like an award show like the Oscars, it's like, wow, well, he gave, all these other awards, this other film, and then this one's Best Picture. Yes, my favorite performance is in the other one, and yeah, my favorite scenes in the other one, but as a whole, I think what Tomboy does is just so insanely impressive. And when you talk about, the swing for the fences that Portrait of a Lady on Fire is, in reflection, Tomboy, is that quintessential Céline Sciamma style. And I mentioned that when we got there, but she was inventing that style, when she made that film. And it's so vulnerable and it's so intimate, and the way it discusses gender and presentation still feels just so fresh and so interesting. I think it is vastly underseen, and as of this moment, I'm putting it down. I think it is the best thing she's made.
Wow. It's a hard race, as I said, and I agree with everything that you're saying about the film, and I'm not upset at that answer at all. It's surprising.
No.
It's shocking.
No, it surprised me when I saw Tomboy. I already had it in the back of my head, do I like this more than Portrait? And yeah, on the revisit, I confirmed it.
It is. I mean, you're right. It's where she invents her signature style, and I do think there's something to be said for that. To invent it there and do it just so dang well. And that's her sophomore effort. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. It's so impressive. I've gone from the start of this to never having seen one of her films to being a massive fan. So I truly can't wait until we get to revisit her. Until I get to revisit her. Get on it, Céline.
Yeah, and he's referring to the fact that if any of our directors that we have their canon completed on the show releases a new film, we catch up with it. We've done that with Lynn Ramsey earlier this year, and we'll be doing it with Osgood Perkins next year, and hopefully, yeah, before long, though nothing's announced as of yet. I really anticipate whatever Sciamma comes up with next.
Yeah, agreed. But as for what's up with us next, do you want to take it? I think I announced Céline, so...
Okay. Wait, this is the end of Céline Sciamma. Next week is our top 10 films of the year. It's our divergence from our regular programming. But then after that, starting the new year, we have a real treat. We hadn't done any animation yet. We had not done anything from Japan. Anyway, for a number of reasons, we had a short list going and narrowed it down, and we're going to begin the year with Satoshi Kon and his brief but brilliant filmography. Some of it will be revisits for me. I don't think you've seen any of it. Is that right?
That is correct. If you've listened to a majority of our episodes. It may seem like I've never seen a movie, and that continues to be what I present, apparently. But I promise you, I am a cinephile. But I have major blind spots.
Yeah, don't we all?
As everyone does,
Yeah.
everyone does, and I'm so excited to rectify one of those blind spots.
Yeah, there's some fun stuff here. As I referred to earlier, before he directed Perfect Blue, there are a couple episodes of the JoJo Part 3 OVA from the 90s that he hit, so we'll be covering that. And then Annie and I will have to talk off comms and figure out how we're either dividing up or doing a TV show all at once. He did do Paranoia Agent. Yeah, he did make Paranoia Agent, which is a television show. So we'll figure it out though. We'll let you know. The schedule will come out after we do our top 10 films, because the second this episode's over, well, and I edit it, we'll be just running, get as much seed as we can in preparation for
pounding the
week.
pavement. See every film. Oh, there's already so many that I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be able to consider it, but that's okay. It's okay.
If you agreed, disagreed with anything here, if you have favorites that you want to share, if you want to talk about our upcoming director, if you have your favorite film of the year that you want to make sure we consider, write to us. We have an email, retrospectivecinemapodcast@gmail.com. You can comment on Spotify. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at retro_sin, CIN. Instagram we usually reserve for calendar stuffs, and TikTok we it's getting kind of broad, but we do a little short form content about new releases, spoiler free, and some podcast highlights. I also have a letterboxd at Ryan Loves Film,
and I am also there at Annie Morel. Comment on my stuff. I have good things to say there too. If you don't want to hear my voice, but you like my words. And as we wrap up the year, I hope folks are going to the theater, because this is the time when so much good stuff can be found there. But whatever you're watching, if you're watching Christmas movies, I know I'll be getting my favorites in before the season is over. Happy watching, merry watching, all of it.
Ding.